I had a viewer yesterday that asked me to do a video on my regrets in life when in my 20s. So that's 50 years ago. I thought about that a bit, and this is the honest answer that I can give you. I don't mean to hurt anybody, but this is the honest truth. My biggest regret when I was in my 20s, when I was 21, is that I married a woman who was already married or had already been married once before and had a child. Now, my friends told me that, you know, are you crazy? Marrying somebody else with another kid, but I loved this woman. She was gorgeous. And anyway, before I met her, when she worked, and I'll call this kid Patrick. Patrick would stay with his grandmother during the day while my wife went to work. And during the day, Grandma would spoil the tar out of Patrick and give him anything he wanted. He was spoiled rotten. And so when I married her, he was spoiled. He was spoiled. And to put it bluntly, he was a brat. And I tried my hardest to love him, to make him feel welcome, to understand that he was in a strange, different environment, and I should be patient with him, etc., etc. And I tried my hardest. I read him bedtime stories. I played games with him. I, did finger puppet things on the wall, on the shadows on the wall with him. I really tried hard with this kid. And anyway, I had so many problems in my marriage because of this kid. I can't tell you how many problems I had in arguments that started as a result of disciplining this kid. To give you an example, I'd go out in the kitchen and there'd be a bowl of Cheerios and milk all over the kitchen floor. And I would ask my wife, I said, well, what happened, Oh, Patrick spilled his bowl of cereal, and, well, where's Patrick at now? Oh, he's outside playing. Why is he outside playing? That's his mess. He should pick it up. He was 5 years old at the time. Old enough to talk to and to understand things. And so I says, it's his mess. He should, pick it up. Oh, that's okay. Weren't you ever a boy? Didn't you ever spill anything? Because that's not the point. The point is it's his mess. He is responsible to pick it up. It's not Mummy's responsibility to pick up his messes. Oh, don't be silly, Just let him be a kid, that type of thing. So I tried to overlook a lot of things in regards to this kid, and it just got worse and worse and worse and worse. He'd bring home a couple of little toys, and said, "Where'd you get those at?" "Oh, I found those on the way home. On the way home from school." This is when he was going to school, finally. I found those on the way home from school. And he would just keep bringing toys home, and, little figurines home and stuff. And I said to my wife, I said, something's wrong, he's probably taking those from somewhere. Oh, he said he found them, and that's all there is to it, type thing. Finally, this one of the friend's mother called our house and said, "Oh, hi, Mrs. So and So. This is so and so. Patrick was over here earlier, and I noticed that he put a couple of Roger's toys in his pocket. Did they show up at your house?" Duh. Yeah, they showed up at my house as stolen merchandise, stolen toys. But no, my wife would stand up for him. Every time I would try to reason with her, she would defend him. You know? Oh, don't pick on him. You know? He's just being a kid, you know? And I believe he found those toys on the way home. We lived in an apartment house one time, and it was on the third floor. I'd walk up the stairs, and there was a fence next to the apartment building, a fence, and then a little creek, you know, just a little tiny creek. And so I was walking up to the third floor where I lived, and you could look out over the fence and the creek and, you know, the building next door or whatever. Anyway, I noticed that someone had thrown a bunch of garbage over the fence with, you know, they're not supposed to. Anyway, someone threw a bunch of garbage over the fence. And as I was looking up going up the stairs, I looked at it and I thought, oh, that's strange. That's the carton of the ice cream that we had a couple of days ago. Well, that's the cereal that we have, you know. Well, that's strange. That's the same soup that we had, you know, 3 days ago. Whatever. So I thought, oh, that looks like our garbage, you know. So I'd go up to my house and or my apartment and talk to my wife about it. And I said, did Patrick take the garbage out? Oh, yes, he did. Well, he didn't take it out and put it in the bin. He threw it over the fence. Oh, don't be silly. You know? I says, come here, I want to show you something, you know? But every time she would stick up for him, oh, that just happens to look like our garbage. I had an antique lamp. It was a figurine that's supposed to stand on the staircase, on the banister of a staircase, and it was made of pot metal. It was a woman figure that was holding up a torch. It was beautiful. It was worth several $100s at the time, and this is like in 1972, you know. And so anyway, I come home and the statue wasn't there on the table where it usually is. Asked my wife, what happened? Where's the statue at? Oh, I accidentally was vacuuming and I tripped on the cord and knocked the statue off, and the lady's arm came off. You know, broke off. And I'm sorry, Ron. You know, I tripped on the cord. Anyway, I came to find out that Patrick did it. Patrick was playing with it, and he did it. My mother went over and was taking my wife and Patrick to the doctor one time when I was out working. I was at work. So my mother goes over there and picks her up, her and Patrick. And while my mother was waiting for my wife to get ready, Patrick was playing with some matches. No, he was lighting. Actually, he had some matches, and he was lighting an antique vaporizer that I had. It was really an antique. He was lighting the wick on it. My mother says, "Patrick, are you supposed to be doing that?" You know, what did she say? She says, I don't think your dad would like you playing around with that. He says, I'm not playing with it. I'm lighting it. You know, I mean, the kid was a brat. I became a stockbroker, And as a stockbroker, the market closes at 2 p.m. In the time zone that I live in. So I hated Pat the Brat so much. I hated to be around him. I mean, he was destroying my marriage. And I hated to be around him. Sometimes I'd do things so I wouldn't have to go home for a few hours. I'd even go to a show. I'd do almost anything so I wouldn't have to be around Pat the Brat. He drove me crazy, and my wife drove me crazy because she stood up for him all the time when he was a brat. So anyway, to answer your question, I would be very careful if ever you think that it's going to be an easy time to marry someone. I mean, I'm talking when you're young. You know, like I got married when I was 21. But if you think it's going to be an easy road to marry a woman that already has a kid from a previous marriage, it's not. The odds are against you. But it's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. It's always hard to marry someone with other kids. You know, it's different when you've gone through a divorce and you have a couple of kids and you find some woman that has a couple of kids and you mingle with each other like you're the Brady Bunch. You know, and at times it can work out. But I'm just telling you what happened to me. And it was really, really a difficult situation that I got myself into, all in the name of quote unquote being in love. I wasn't thinking with this. I wasn't analyzing the possible problems with this. I was thinking, oh, I love her, things will work out. I was in La La Land. I was in La La Land because I was in love with this beautiful woman. So that's my advice, that if you are in a situation where, excuse me, that you're thinking about marrying a woman when you're young or when you're first married, marrying a woman with other kids, I think again. I'm not trying to put women down. Excuse me, I'm not trying to put women down that have been married and divorced with children. A lot of times it's not their fault. Sometimes it is their fault. But I'm telling you that it's not easy and it could lead to major problems. It's hard enough to get married when you're young and support an extra person, excuse me, and to make enough to have an apartment or buy a home or rent a home or whatever. It's hard enough just being married, let alone to all of a sudden have someone else's kid, especially if they're a brat, like Pat the Brat, you know? Anyway, that's my advice. I mean, there's other things that I would regret or regretted, and things that I would do differently. But that is the major problem that I had getting married in my 20s. Anyway, that's my 14 minutes of wisdom. I hope that helps the person that asked me. You probably never find yourself in that situation, but if you do, be on guard, because it's a difficult situation to be into. Believe me.